I think to set the scene, I'd like to kind of take you guys back to March the 27th, 1995. And just to set the scene of what the world was like on that particular day, the number one song in the country was Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio. This may not have registered with you at the time, but I think it's a significant event. Eazy-E sadly passed away on the Sunday, the day before Frogstomp came out. Of course, the NWA member, he passed away at the age of 30. The Academy Awards were on that night, the Monday night that Frogstomp came out. David Letterman was the host. He absolutely tanked. And the most nominated film, can you remember what the most nominated film might have been?
Shawshank Redemption?
No. No, the most nominated film, which ended up winning 6 awards, was Forrest Gump. But we all know, everyone in the room knows, that Pulp Fiction should have fucking won. There was Paul Keating was the Prime Minister. There were 17 million people living in Australia at the time. 3% of them were on the internet. So that was roughly the world as it existed on March the 27th in 1995. Now, don't fuck up this question. I've done a lot of research to put that together.
Yeah.
What were you doing that day that the album came out?
John Watson, are you here? I have no idea. I think, see, back then, we were obviously 15 and very innocently living our lives, and I guess oblivious to a lot of things that were going on. For us, it was the excitement amongst the three of us. We're doing what we were like, always hoping would happen. And probably didn't pick up so much on some really poignant moments.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, you look back and you go, it was pretty incredible.
So it would have been a Monday. It was obviously a school. It was a school day. So you weren't racing down to the local CD shop to check out whether Frogstomp was in the stores as everyone promised you it would be. You can't actually remember that moment.
No, I don't remember what we were doing. I do remember when Watto told us the album had got to number one. That's a memory. We were in an airport. Watto really should be helping with this.
He should be.
We were in an airport we're on tour, and Watto raced up to us. He'd taken a call from somebody and was like, hey, the album's gone to number one. And, what was that, the Pizza Hut story? That's one of my memories. This is the thing, over time, over 30 years, they all kind of start jumbling together. But I remember at an airport, Watto came up and said, hey guys, your album's number one. And we were kind of like, yeah, great, that's awesome, Watto. Where are we going now? So we were just in such a whirlwind that maybe we didn't have the chance to be able to stop and recognise those moments. So
this is going to be interesting because, you guys were 14, 15, across 94, 95 when all of this stuff was happening for you. Now you're mature men. It's going to be interesting to kind of reflect back.
Golden men?
Well, sorry, I didn't want to use the word older, but it was like, you're grown men now kind of looking back on what you were like when you were 14 and 15, just going through the eye of the storm. Something that I think you'll remember a lot more vividly, let's go back a couple of months before Frogstomp's release. You get invited to play the big day out. I was at the Sydney one. Yep. I was watching you guys play in the crowd at the Sydney Big Day Out, which I think a few other people in the audience might have been at as well. What did you got to paint the scene for anyone who wasn't there. What did you see? What did you experience? What was it like for you?
Well, we were on a backstage that had a capacity of, I think it was supposed to be 4,000 to 5,000. And I think there was maybe 15,000 to 20,000, maybe more, jammed in there. And it was, it felt like we were in a film. It felt like it was so surreal, and people were so desperate to see us play that they were climbing.
There was one guy, I'll vividly remember him hanging from the light post, and he's a good 20 metres above the ground, just screaming. But the intensity and the energy was just it was a hysteria sort of moment. Definitely, we'll never forget it. There was one of those skate stages that had a shed to the right of it at one of the gigs. I can't remember which.
I think it was Sydney, was it? Yeah, the roof.
And they were just running and leaping off this shed roof, and yeah, it was just, yeah, we're going, you know, you just kind of playing, just going, what the, you know.
Coming back to what we were saying though, like I think when you're in the eye of the storm and it's your reality, it's your normal. So although that was going on and it was all really crazy, maybe because we were just blissfully naive, like we just went on stage and were like, well, this is what we love doing, so this is great, and we just played.
Yeah, but it's considerably different to the pubs that you would have been playing around Newcastle. Like, put it this way, this is January 1995. 6 months before that, you were still called the Innocent Criminals, and no one outside of Newcastle had even heard of you. You get up on stage as 14, 15-year-olds at the big day out. Your manager says, no, they're not playing the main stage, even though you had the number one song in the country at the time. No, not the main stage, we'll put them on a smaller stage. There was all of this sort of like, we've got to protect the guys, we don't want to burn them too fast. But I was in a washing machine of people that day. It was amazing no one died. I remember that guy who climbed the pole.
Yeah.
The guy who climbed the pole was on a pole that was doing this, and he was like 30 metres in the air. Was it scary at all? Was it exhilarating? Or were you just concentrating on getting through the songs?
A little bit of everything, I think. It was kind of, yeah, and make mention of the management that I guess shouldered us and helped steer the ship. We had a great team of people around us from the start, and I think that, you know, when you're saying, do you remember this time? I think they created such a, I guess, a normal space around us that, you know, we were really fortunate that they probably ironed as many bumps out as possible, and yeah, we were very lucky in that sense.
Put a force field around you almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about the role management played, and also just how, as 14 and 15-year-olds, you had to kind of, you know, be almost protected from the storm that was existing around you. Let's go back to the writing of Tomorrow, which is obviously seems to be such a crucial moment in the formation of Silverchair and what you guys were. It was in your bedroom, Ben, that the song came to be. Can you take us back to roughly when it was, what you were, you know, trying to do that day and how it came together?
Yeah, so it was, I guess up to that point we were pretty rigid in terms of our rehearsals. We had rehearsed, band practice was Friday afternoons after school, and then whatever gigs we had coming up. But I think we just had a moment where we decided to just try some jamming, because that's what all of our idols and you know, the bands that we're listening to, that's kind of what they, in the 70s, that's kind of what they seem to do, a lot of jams. So, and the band practice locations seemed to move a lot around the Gillies household. It was like garage, living room, back to the garage. It moved around. But at that particular time, we were in, just happened to be in my bedroom. I don't know why, because it was a really small bedroom. So to have a drum kit, a couple of amps, guitars, and it was just any other day, we just had started this jamming, and we would just jam, you know, playing whatever we felt like. You know, you're not thinking about anything, you're just in the moment playing the music. And the three of us just launched into the chorus of Tomorrow out of thin air, and it was just like, it was just this moment where we were kind of all like lunatics looking at each other going like, this is pretty cool. And like, I imagine we played it like maybe, who knows how long, probably 10 minutes, like, and that 90s thing where it got soft and loud, then soft and loud. And, you know, I imagine we just kept doing it over and over again, going like, yeah, horse, you know, hit the chorus again. And then afterwards we just kind of finished and all went home and didn't think anything of it. And then I called Daniel maybe that day or the day after, and just said, hey man, that thing that we were doing, we should turn it into a song. And Chris and Dan would always walk past my childhood home on the way to school, and he came over and we finished it on a couple of acoustic guitars and just figured out like the verse and the pre-chorus, and it was a 6-minute version. It was an epic rock odyssey.
Yeah. It seems to me like you were the one who really first of all spotted the potential of the song.
Yeah, you know, I'd like to think of myself as the ultimate A&R for Silverchair. But yeah, I mean, who knows if I didn't, if that song didn't come to life. I mean, it was born out of a moment of just three guys in a room, just incredibly passionate about what they do and so excited, and that's what it bottled, that's what it captured, and I think that's the reason why it resonated with so many, particularly young people at the time, and even some young people that are discovering it now. It just captures that pure essence of doing something that you're incredibly passionate and that you love, and that energy of when you're a teenager and there's lots of discovery. Just put it in a bottle, and you could tap into it whenever you wanted.
With Daniel as well. Like, so go back a couple of years before that. So this is like the formation of the band. You're around the age of 12. When he sang for the first time, or when you heard him sing within the band, what was his register like vocally? Did his voice break somewhere along the line to make it a lot deeper, or did he always just have this extraordinary voice for a kid?
He always had the voice, and I remember clearly it would have been like year 4. We're all friends, but Ben and Dan had this little group. I think, was it called the Silly Man?
Oh, we were Witch Doctors, Silly Man, 9.9 on
and
the
they
Richter
pushed a
scale.
bunch of tables together in a classroom, and were putting on a bit of a lunchtime concert thing. But yeah, he just had this crazy voice.
There was always kind of that growly, that sort of deep register, and could he then go high as well?
In the year 4 version, yeah. But yeah.
The year 4 version, I know. But see, that's interesting because that's before Eddie Vedder, you know. So people kind of thought at first, he's kind of nicking a bit of Eddie Vedder's move with the vocal. But he kind of instinctively had that.
Absolutely, yeah.
That game before then.
Yeah.
You guys recorded, as you said, a 6-minute version, which was the one that actually won the Nomad, the SBS program Nomad. Picture was the winner. Was it kind of like your Stairway to Heaven moment? Because you did actually play Stairway to Heaven in a band competition. Did you kind of have that sort of vision for tomorrow being almost, this could be our Stairway to Heaven?
I think, because we fed off our father's record collections, and having bands like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple as sort of staples that you were listening to at, a 7, 8, 9 minute odyssey wasn't sort of out of the ordinary, So, yeah, and as Ben mentioned, that whole sort of loud, soft thing, and so, yeah, I guess maybe it was sort of leaning into that a bit, but I don't know, 6 minutes didn't seem long to us.
You actually, you actually ended up recording the track a couple of different times, but when you got the phone call to say that you had won the competition, can you actually remember that moment and the excitement? Because you had been in other band competitions for a number of years, trying your luck.
Well, that's
getting
a lot of the
various
places that we could play, just being obviously underage, was either a street fair or a band competition or...
Jolly Roger let us in.
They did.
Yeah. There was a pub in Newcastle called the Jolly Roger, and it was a little rough around the edges. But they would let us play in there. They would let us go on the band comps. We were only allowed in the band room unless we were playing. We couldn't go in the venue, but yeah. But I remember the moment that we won. We were at back at the Gillies household, and Daniel was over, and Mum took a call from Daniel's mum. And she said, hey, let the boys know that they won that competition. And we ran around that house like we were untamed animals. We were very excited. Yeah.
Let's sort of move on to the actual change. You came up with Silverchair. You put the EP out in September of '94. So it was 4 tracks, and basically Tomorrow being the single. You projected that the EP would sell 6,000 copies. You got that wrong. It ended up selling close to 250,000 copies. When that was starting to really take off, because I remember, there's a few things I remember just quickly. I remember Phil McKellar, the day he actually recorded with you guys downstairs. I was upstairs doing my radio show, and he came up so excited at the end of recording Tomorrow, and he said, "Man, these guys are fantastic. He said, these guys are so good." And back then, this is before Unearthed. So band competitions weren't a dime a dozen. So this was kind of like a big deal, and he was so excited. And everything Phil said was pretty much spot on. So there was that, and then you're getting ready to release the EP. The requests that we got on the radio once we started playing it were just so, there was nothing engineered about it. It was literally play a song on the radio, audience goes nuts. People just connected so quickly with that song. Then you watch the sales of it. That doesn't happen. Shit like that just doesn't happen. There's so many songs released and that just doesn't happen. This one, it was so viral before we had anything to spread it across the internet. You guys were almost wanting the success to stop at certain points. You were worried that it was just getting out of control, weren't you?
I guess that goes back to what Ben was saying, just that thing that was obviously bottled at that moment when that song was coming together. I think we, at that time, as it was, just obviously ramping up and, things were taking off at a, really fast pace, we were probably more excited about the shows that we were going to get to play because production was getting better, we were getting better as a band, the venues and gigs were getting bigger and better. That was our excitement of the day, that hour and a bit on stage or 45 minutes, whatever it was, every day was that bit that you look forward to most every day, just getting up there with your three mates playing was really just that window every day. You just go, this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
It was the best feeling ever.
I'll talk to you about the chemistry between you three because it was extraordinary. But at school, was it basically weird? All of a sudden, you're getting played on national radio. The songs getting requested by all sorts of people.
We had a pretty good bunch of mates that kept us pretty honest. And I think our parents and everyone around us, helping us choose that path to finish school to year 12 and whatnot, I think kept us pretty grounded throughout the whole process.
Grounded, but also were you victims? In the schoolyard, were you targets all of a sudden?
I don't remember. No, it's almost like people ignored it. Like it was like it was present, but I don't know. Newcastle in the 90s was the Newcastle High was I don't know. It wasn't a
Had a bit of an edge to it.
Had an edge to it. Yeah. So I mean, actually, we were almost targeted. I remember there were some older guys that was like they were not happy with the things taking off, and particular guys like one guy in particular I know who I'm talking about. This one guy was just like, I freaking hate you guys, and I just want to. He would throw fruit at us, and he would bully us basically.
You were just popping all the girls all of a sudden, were you? And it's just
Chris knows
what
all
okay, let's jump ahead. So you weren't in the studio for very long, but what sort of memories come back?
Yeah, there you go. I think they were incredibly fond memories. Like Chris was saying about being excited about playing live and waiting for that moment to play on stage. It was the same in the studio, but the great thing, it was just really condensed, like we love playing. We love playing together. That's the passion and that chemistry that we had. When we got to switch it on and be together and do that, it was so exciting and exhilarating that any chance that we got to do it. And at that point, you're not really aware of it. You just know that when you do it, you really love it. So to have that opportunity to be in a world-class studio with a world-class producer and a bunch of songs that we just loved and just record all day, every day for a week and a half, that's like you're in heaven.
Yeah, you made the album at Festival Studios, which is in Piedmont. Rupert Murdoch owned Festival Records at the time. It's a pretty legendary studio. I think there's probably Schnicker Studios in Sydney, but it was still a pretty decent facility, and it dates back to the 50s. I mean, there was a whole lot of history attached to that studio, going back as far as Johnny O'Keefe, but also in Excess and a whole bunch of other bands that used that studio did any of that mean anything to you when you went in there to record?
Not quite, no. But coming from the studios in Newcastle that we'd done some demos to then the Triple J studios with Bill and then festival, it was the excitement and just seeing just what we were doing obviously get amplified and start to I feel we were pretty we wanted to be a really good band, and we definitely had hopes and dreams and aspirations, and just to see it, slowly in front of quickly in front of your eyes, being in this awesome studio and the scale of it, we'd probably walk in there and it would feel relatively small. It's not there anymore, but to us, it was just like this huge, incredible place that we could go and make music.
An incredible place that you still managed to ding the corridors with in road cases. You would get in and basically use them as go-karts and go up and down the corridors when you weren't doing takes in the studio.
This came up the other day, we were talking about it, and someone said, "Oh gosh, didn't you hurt yourself?" And I was like, "No, we were safely locked inside." Padded box. We were fine. It was the walls of the place that were absolutely... And there was this really beautiful old Italian fellow, I think he was either the caretaker of the building.
He was like the maintenance guy. Yeah.
Oh. And then, it had been a little while since we'd been there, we went back to record again, I can't remember what we were there for. And there was this checker plate stainless steel stuff all down the hallways, protecting, a good 300 mil up the walls.
They probably weren't there the day before. They saw us coming in, they were like, yeah, just put those things on.
You made some improvements thanks to you. Yeah. You got to record that debut album with Kevin Shirley, a South African who was living in Australia at the time, and he was picked because he could work fast in the studio because your attention spans are terrible. Is that basically it in a nutshell?
I think as a comment, that was probably one of the factors. But also I think Kevin had we didn't have very much to do with picking Kevin. I think that was more Watto and O'Donnell. And it was genius because he just was able to capture that really raw rock energy. And
He could pull sounds really fast and get the sounds that were in your head that you thought did Silverchair justice.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we probably weren't as involved with the sonic side of things back then. We just wanted to play. So he was, he was able to, just make it a wall of sound. And as soon as we heard it, we're like, yeah, that's it. That sounds great.
I don't know if it's true or not. He's not here to defend himself, but is it true that he actually would, if you were getting annoying and he needed to get on to some work, throw you in a room and put a videotape of porn on and just lock the door?
They need to talk 15-year-old voice.
Yeah. Every now and then.
I thought for a moment this was going to be looking worse for Kevin than it was for you, because I know that your kids are here and love one.
What's porn? I don't know what porn is.
All right, we'll fly by that one. It took you to put the songs down, and then Daniel has about 5 days, but because he hadn't sung that intensely, he kind of was losing his voice, and he ended up with a cold, and that was kind of playing a bit of havoc with the schedule. Otherwise, you would have knocked it out within less than a week.
Yeah.
But was it kind of intense for Daniel to kind of do that many vocals in that amount of time?
Yeah, obviously, starting to lose his voice, and it took its toll because it was just go. So part of that process, which I think carried on through making all the other records, were really well rehearsed as well. We spent a lot of time rehearsing and making sure the songs were perfect, before we sort of stepped into the studio most of the time. Dan had never really, I guess, done so much singing at that level of commitment as well.
In one go,
yeah.
Yeah.
He did actually, Kevin, one night, I do recall, maybe this is when he needed a little bit extra help, because some nights Kevin would come in and be kind of swaying and bouncing off the hallways, and we go, what's going on with him? And then we noticed he'd have a little scotch on the desk each night. And then we were kind of like, what's going on there, Kevin? And he was like, oh, do you guys want to try it? We're like, yeah, all right, we'll try it. But then he was like, a couple of times when Dan was like, I just need a little bit of helping hand, he was like, have some of that. That'll help. warm up the throat, you know.
Yeah, apparently Daniel's mum wasn't too impressed with the bottle. It was a bottle of whiskey, it wasn't just it was like the bottle of whiskey was there and the shot glass was there. It was being refilled a fair bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was.
Did Daniel's mum try to bring it up with you?
I don't recall. I think we may have slipped that one under the carpet, if you know what I mean. It's only recently we've kind of been going, that happened. Because you can't get in trouble when you're 40.
Okay, so this is basically the end of '94. The album's done. You do the big day out, as we mentioned before. Then comes March, the release day for the record. As I said before, the first Australian act to ever have a debut album go straight to #1. It was also the first time since 1990 that an Australian act had an album reach the top 10 in the States on the Billboard charts. In Excess had done it in 1990, but nothing for 5 years. You basically, that does deserve a round of applause. This is what I was getting to a little bit in the intro. I remember vividly, we were waiting for our Smells Like Teen Spirit moment in Australia. Rat Cat was almost it, but not quite. Rat Cat were a good band. It just sort of, died pretty quickly for them. But then, you guys had that moment that we were all waiting for, and it just opened up the floodgates. It was such an inspiring moment for Australian bands, but to see that success over in the States, that was rare, and that was so exciting. And that was just, as a music fan myself, it was just like, wow, this is such a rare opportunity that this band has managed to create for all of the rest of Australian music now. Once again, this stuff probably just went straight over your head at that time, at that point in your lives, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm kind of just hearing now from people, the experience that they had and how it affected them. One that I remember recently, a friend of mine that lives in Nashville, an American that went to a school over there, and he was telling me that he and one of his friends discovered the band from his brother, or however they discovered it, and that they were like, oh hey, these guys are 15 and they're in Australia, they're killing it, and they were like, we can do this. And I think that was I really liked that effect that we had on other people, that they saw within themselves that it was possible. And it would be interesting to see how many bands kind of got together in thinking yeah, we can do it. And it doesn't, I guess, whatever level of success, it doesn't matter, who cares? It's they're playing music together and having a great time. So that's the knock-on effect that I really like.
And just also the amazing part of it to see firsthand through my son as well, who learned guitar. One of the first songs he learned to play was Tomorrow. The generation before it was probably Stairway to Heaven, but he's not the only one in this country who picked up a guitar, and Tomorrow was one of the first songs that they actually learned the chords for to play. Touring America, obviously the album comes out, and then you head off and do specific touring. You do Europe first, which Chris, I think threw you for a bit of a spin at first, because touring was, you guys needed passports. You hadn't really, going to Sydney was a big trip.
It was, yeah.
Long drive.
All of a sudden you're over in Europe for the first time.
Yep.
Was it a bit of a weird experience for you to get used to?
It was, and I'm naturally a bit of a homebody as well. So yeah, it was it was a big departure from, but the excitement and again just this moment of playing every day, bigger level again, hearing your song on the radio in another country. You were holding on and just, yeah.
Well, that was just a setup for America, which was the holy grail then and still is pretty much today in terms of reaching numbers of people. I love the way that the song Tomorrow kind of got you known over in the States. There was a guy in Perth who heard it on the radio, liked it, bought a CD, had a mate who worked at a radio station, I think in Atlanta, sent it to him, they liked it, started playing it there. And then it was in Detroit and Chicago, these other radio stations, because one of the music directors was over here checking out the Cruel Sea.
Yep.
And saw you instead, and went, these guys are really great.
And funny you should say that, because there's some of all my early memories of going to the States was at Atlanta and Detroit. And you know, like touring America is very different to touring Australia. You know, it's tour buses, like, and even though like management did a great job because the arc, you know, it was very steep and things were happening really fast. They made sure that we at least had a taste of, you know, the entry level into touring. Like the first tour bus in America was like rough, and the heating clapped out, and it was ice on the inside of the windows. And I think it was Dave was this that we were doing that?
I don't remember. I just
And
remember
we
the
bought
heater.
this like kerosene heater that we had running on the floor in the bus to try and keep us warm.
Safe. It was very
Oh,
safe.
and this is the tour that your dads are actually accompanying you on
Yeah,
with?
yeah.
Smart thinking, guys.
Yeah. And then there was another tour, one of the early ones in Europe, you know, 30 odd hours on a plane, economy, get off the other end, and there's your bus waiting for you to pack all your gear into and then drive around Europe for another couple of months. Like 2 rows of economy seats in the van, and it was just like, what a
Yeah, so the management didn't want you to kind of think that it was all just a life of luxury on the road. They wanted you to work.
But we had a ball. Yeah, absolute ball.
The first show that you did in the States, people were queuing up to get into the venue, which must have amazed you because you've gone to the other side of the world, but you're already well known because of the radio airplay. And the crowds in America, what do you remember from playing those first shows? Did it feel much different to playing in Australia?
There was already, I guess, a level of, people knew you, they knew the songs, sort of those first early days, turn up there and have an audience that, you know, knows the band. It was pretty wild.
All right, I'm going to read something from... You guys put out a book a couple of years ago called Love and Pain. Excellent read. You guys really opened up in the book and shared a lot of great stories, and it brought back to memory because I vaguely remembered it at the time. But when you were in the States, once again, this is the thing that I just was looking back over going, I know this story is extraordinary, but fuck, this is so extraordinary. It's September the 7th, 1995. Tomorrow the EP hasn't been out for a year. Okay, you know, it was about this time the year before you were still the Innocent Criminals. You hadn't even put out the... So it's September the 7th. You're playing Radio City Music Hall. You're playing on the rooftop of Radio City Music Hall in New York City because it's the MTV Music Awards. And you're basically the opening act for it. You're being filmed, the 3 of you are there. There's 20 deep of people on the other side of the road watching you perform while all the stars come in for the MTV Music Awards. Chris, you wrote in the book, when we first arrived at the iconic venue, we walked in on Michael Jackson doing his sound check. During the show, George Clooney presented Madonna with the Best Female Video Award, Hole performed Violet, and TLC won Video of the Year for Waterfalls. After the show, Ben's mum went up and introduced herself to Mike Tyson.
That's what you do at the MTV Music Awards.
It's what you fucking do. Mike Tyson only just got out of jail too, but that didn't seem to worry your mum.
No, if you met my mum, she wouldn't have cared. She probably shaped up to Let's go around.
Yet, Chris, you also say in the book, this was our reality, it didn't feel strange.
Yeah, and I guess once you, are just in the, bubble, for lack of a better term, and it's just what we did day in, day out, and it was so compact in the sort of takeoff point to that moment. I guess none of it really felt like it was out of the ordinary, because it was kind of like, oh, well, what's next? What's around the corner? And it just didn't feel. It felt like we're exactly where we should be.
Yeah, once again, I'm still trying to get my head around it. Because inside, I think the Chili Peppers also played at that. The Green Day were there. Alanis Morissette. I mean, it was just like you look back on it and go. And Silverchair opened the whole thing and played on the rooftop. So when I know the video is still up online and people can see it if they haven't checked it out. But can you go back to that moment? Can you remember it? Like the memories,
really
is it
cool.
still strong for you?
We had to climb out this like little diggy window to get out onto the awning, and it felt really foreign because you were just out on the awning of a building on the street, and a little sort of detached as well. It's not like you had an audience in front of you that you were sort of feeding off either. There were just limos rolling in down below you and artists getting out, but we were just having a hoot.
Yeah. I think Daniel was wearing a You Are My t-shirt. I think, Chris, you were wearing an Even t-shirt. Do you remember what you were wearing?
I Love New York.
Yes. Flying the flag for Australian music. Maybe not as much as the other guys.
I'm sure I would have picked it up like the day before at Times Square.
Yeah, when you started the trend, everyone was wearing it after that. That's for sure. That experience of the States brings me back to another favourite moment of watching you guys perform. You're back in Australia, so you've done, a few months of touring various spots around the States. It's the beginning of 1996. It's like the 3rd of January. The very first home bake happens in...
Mud bake.
Yeah. Was anyone else in the audience that...
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
I was pulling mud out of equipment for I don't know how long after that. It was just like cow pats flying everywhere. It was a lot of mud.
I stood side to stage. I was lucky enough because we were doing a broadcast at the home bake. So this is the Belongil Fields where the first Splendors in the Grass were held as well, but in a slightly different spot. You guys, there were kind of, I think, 2 main stages, Tumbleweed, Magic Dirt, You and I were all on the bill. It just didn't stop raining for the whole day, like torrential rain. You guys were playing on the main stage. I came, stood side of stage. Everyone else left because everyone was just getting absolutely saturated. You couldn't go out into the audience either clean because you just got pummeled with mud because everyone saw that there was a clean boy and just went for you. The thing that I took away that day from watching your whole set and sitting and standing side of stage was the fact that you weren't put off by anything. There was mud flying around. You guys locked in and you just played, and it was like everything else just wasn't there. It wasn't affecting your performance at all.
Yeah, we were all like, I think we keep coming back to that was the core driver for the band. Once we kicked in, and if we were in the zone, like everything just disappeared. And like obviously you feed off the audience, but yeah, like we're in a happy place. That's what we like when you're touring, when you're doing shows like that. You wait around, you do a lot of waiting. Like you wait around all day, and that's the moment you get. That's the payoff. So we loved it. We loved it so much.
Chemistry between you two, was it always there? Bass player, drummer.
Yeah, I mean we were friends. Four.
Well, yeah. So Ben and I grew up across the road from each other from the early age, like 2 or 3 even. And then obviously by the time we could walk and talk, we've discovered each other. Well, our mums were friends. So we started knocking around with each other in the street. Typically when the street was flooding or doing something like that. Well, I guess, I don't have any other friends that I've known for 40 plus years. And we've been through our own personal ups and downs between ourselves. And it always just seemed, too silly a reason to not be mates, especially when you've got that much history and you know each other that well. It's a really special day.
Frogstomp come.
It's double one, mate.
It doesn't have to be the best. It's your favourite. Is Frogstomp?
Yeah, I think it's my favourite because of that. It's like what I was talking about tomorrow. I think that the album as a whole just bottled a moment, a really special moment for all of us. Was such a special time. So for me, like I can. And we're like everybody else, you have your music and your albums that kind of instantly, they're like time machines. They take you back to a moment in your life. or a feeling or whatever it was, whatever what was going on. It's the same for us. It's like their time, their time stamps. And, there was different things going on and different emotions for all the records. But for Frogstomp, just because of what was going on and the excitement and the purity around it, that's for me. That's why it was such a great time. And it's just my memories are so fond of it. So that's why it's my favourite.
It's a tie first for me between Young Modern and Frogstomp. And the reason for that,
You can stay.
Frogstomp was a really sort of pure, incredible experience. Like Ben said, it's really vivid and takes you back there. But for me, Young Modern as a band and how we recorded it and where we were all musically together was probably the closest we ever got to one of those just performance-based, small little shed, recording music, all live performances.
Almost full
Yeah,
circle,
it really did. It was the closest I feel we ever got back to in terms of laying down the tracks and all the main parts of the songs as a band. So it's hard to split them for me.
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about you guys as well is that I know you would have liked to have made more records, but you didn't make a bad one. 5 great records. And the other thing is that five very different, personalities behind those records too, which is the extraordinary thing about your career as well. You've both got kids now. I know that they're, probably still a little bit on the young side.
My kids wanted me to do a shout out tonight, and I was in trouble about it. Alright, so hey kids.
Alright, are they out there? Do you want to say their names?
Odette and Spence, are you behaving?
Would you, a couple of questions, have you talked to them? Do they know about Silverchair? Do they understand what you used to do?
Definitely discovering. My kids are definitely discovering what Dad used to do, which is really sweet. They've got their favourite songs and Silverchair songs amongst their playlist that they've sort of just gone and found and thrown in there. So yeah, it's just cool.
Yeah, right. And yours, Ken?
My twin boys are just over 3. So we were saying backstage, at the moment it feels like I'm, what's his name?
Outside the plane.
Yeah, Tom Cruise, like on the side of the plane, just holding on. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me ask you this instead. Will you encourage them to get into music after everything you've experienced?
You know what? They've just in the last, and this what any parents here they'll understand this. Like, there's really big moments where they have these spikes in interest in different things. But in the last maybe month, they've become obsessed with my studio. So like, we'll get home from like daycare and they'll be like, "Daddy, we're going to the studio." And like, I've got my all my stuff in there. Like, it's like they'll trip over. There's like, and I'm like, "Alright, come on, boys, let's go." So they get in there and bang on the drums and the piano and all the different stuff I've got around. And so they're showing interest, that's for sure.
Yeah. Right. Okay, listen, I've got a whole bunch of other things I could speak to you. Lows that you guys have been through, and especially since the end of Silverchair, seems to have just made you guys closer as well.
Yeah, I think, it's just the Silverchair experience just feels like, it's a moment in our lives, it's a moment in our kind of friendship. And we've just kind of continued on now, with our families, and we probably, you spend a lot of time with someone when you're on tour, so we don't spend quite that much time together. But it is a special relationship when you've been mates with someone and had that shared experience.
Yeah. The question though was really about the musical chemistry between you two, because that's what I took away from actually watching that home-back experience as well, was that you guys just were able to lock in and nothing could sort of, every performance I saw, you guys were rock solid as a rhythm section. So when you guys started playing musical instruments, was there some sort of unspoken dialogue between you that just worked?
I think that, yeah. So for me, one of the things always stood on Ben's left. So hats and kick were always a thing that I just, even when another band's playing, I always just hear a hi-hat and kick drum, and they're the two things that sort of I go to first. whether it's subconsciously, but that's what sort of pulls me in, I guess, when we're playing.
I also think when you're in a band with somebody from such an early stage, particularly the development stage of yourself as a musician, you just get to know that person. It's like a language, you know. Like you get to know that person so well musically that you can almost anticipate what they're going to do next. And I think that was one of the reasons the band was had like. It's hard for us because, again, we were in it. It was our reality, so we don't have that perspective. But I think maybe that's the reason we had something magic about the band, is because we played together and been together for so long that Chris and I, and even us with Daniel as well, the three of us together just had this instinctual kind of unspoken knowing of what the other person's going to do before they even do it. And, you know, and you're not really aware of it, it's just a reflex. And that's, I think maybe that, to me, that's why, like, you just don't have to think about it, it just happens.
We talked a little bit before about management kind of making as easy a transition for you guys to have a normal, you know, teenagehood as possible given these extreme circumstances. From when Frogstomp came out to when you then released Freak Show, things did change though. I mean, your perspective, you've done a lot of travelling, but even shit like in Newcastle, when you guys were taking off, because you weren't doing a million interviews, because you weren't speaking to every girly magazine, because the mainstream press was kept at arm's length from you, you had paparazzi, you know, in Newcastle camping outside your house, at school, taking photos of you guys riding bikes. That stuff must have just been pretty awkward for you at that stage of your life.
Yeah, I guess those, you know, moments were pretty in your face. Daniel obviously experienced it at a deeper level and a higher intensity at times. But yeah, that was a bit where I guess most other situations we found ourselves were by choice, and we sort of had control is not the right word, but a pretty good idea of what was going on. Those moments were definitely like someone charging into your space, and you're just kind of either not prepared or I guess you lost that. You were either on your own in some of those moments as well. So you didn't really have that safety of the sanctuary of the bubble either as well. Yeah.
Was it your mum, Chris, who used to, when you got fans calling, because I think your parents' business was advertised, the number of it anyway, so fans of the band...
This is an egg Gillies.
This is your mum. So you get fans calling you at all times of the day and night, you know, basically hassling your family. Is it true that she used to get the numbers, write it down, and then call them back at 2 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah. My mum was an interesting lady. She had like a caller ID, and Dad was a plumber. He had a plumbing business. Couldn't really take it off like the white pages and yellow pages, so it was public, and people would call at all times of the night, and it would upset her, and she would write down the numbers, and they'd always be generally young girls, and she'd write down the numbers, and then she'd set an alarm for like 2 or 3 in the morning. Get up. She'd call the numbers and the parents would answer, and she'd be like, "Hey, do you know that your daughter's calling this number, and just want to let you know." The really funny thing as well, she was a bit odd, Mum. She was great. She'd sometimes bark like a dog. I don't know why. But yes, so that's what she did.
She obviously found it annoying, and she wanted to basically get back at them. And she did. Okay, listen, there's so much we could kind of talk about. You just kind of touched on, you know, Daniel feeling the pressure, I guess, of those early years, you know, pretty intensely. Did you guys know how to talk about any of that stuff, or did you just see him withdraw and kind of go, we'll just give him some space?
Yeah, I guess we were relatively young men, so not great at talking things.
Men from Newcastle.
And from Newcastle.
Yeah.
And no, we weren't. I don't think we. I think we have. We definitely carried an unspoken sort of like hug for each other. I think, but no, I don't believe we were great communicators. And in hindsight, if we had the tools now as old wise men, yeah, we probably would have had maybe some different conversations with each other.
But you were only 15 or 16.
Yeah, this is right.
This is stuff that usually people just don't ever endure at all, any stage of their life.
Yeah, and I think we'd probably come out of a culture in Newcastle too, where you just stick it out and walk through the mud.
You don't talk about your
and
feelings.
You don't talk about your feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you take Israel's Son, Pure Massacre, Tomorrow out of the mix, listening back to the record, everyone was kind of focusing on those 3 big singles, but there's some real diamonds still in the other tracks as well. Like, what are your favourite moments maybe from the other tracks that didn't get as much airplay or as much recognition?
Can we see an album list? The one that, oh, there we go. Oh yeah, Shade's cool. Mad Man. Actually, where's what are we doing here? Oh, Undecided. Yeah, that's. I always really liked that track. There was something like, I don't know. I think we were trying to draw inspiration from. Yeah, it was Helmet. Yes, it was Helmet. Yeah, that's kind of. I think that's around the time we discovered that band. Yeah, I like Undecided too. It's a bit of an unsung hero on that album.
Yeah, I always thought the final track, Find a Way, just had something about it. I don't think you recorded it as best as you probably could. It sounded like it was maybe one of the rushed ones. So Kevin Shirley's not here, but he made your drums sound like you're hitting cans of paint into the drums. Like, there's a real thickness to the snare on that track. But fuck, I love that song. It's got such a great chorus to it. It always struck me, and it's the least popular on the album. In terms of, if you look at the streaming stats, but I always thought, man, if they just worked this one a bit more, it could have turned into something even bigger.
Yeah, I like that track too. It's almost got like a bit of a pop. There's a little pop element.
Very
in there
UMI.
somewhere.
Yeah. Well, John, when we were walking in, I was saying to John Watson, I was like, geez, just trying to remember all this stuff. And he made a mention that Find a Way did come about quite late in the piece of all those songs to that record.
Please don't tell Kevin Shirley I said that, because I've seen photos of him and he looks far bigger than me. But I'm going to leave it there. I basically want to end by saying congratulations on everything that Silverchair achieved. I will also just doubly remind you of the impact this record had 30 years ago. So tomorrow is the 30th anniversary. So when that album came out, I don't mean it lightly, but it really did change things in Australia for so much of the music scene here. So well done for achieving that for the rest of the community as well.